Hey guys, this is Dave with Audio In. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Ikko OH10S Sapphire Mirage. Now, if you've been following my channel lately, you've probably noticed I've been getting a lot of $200 IEMs in, and while they're not necessarily bad, there haven't really been that many that have surprised me or stood out from the crowd. Maybe with the exception of the Falcon Ultra, the Kara, and the Performer 5. And while I do feel like the Kara and Performer 5 have a more refined tuning and have an overall cleaner presentation than the Falcon Ultra does have a really good V-shaped tuning, but there is also something special about the dynamic presentation, probably due to the new Eclipse driver that they use in the Falcon Ultra, that really has me kind of hooked on it. But aside from those, not many of the other more recent releases have stood out to me. So now we have the Ikko OH10S, which of course comes in at $219, but the question is, does the OH10S Sapphire Mirage bring anything new to the table or offer anything these other new sub $300 IEMs do not? So that's the question I want to attempt to answer. But first, let's go over what's included in the box. Of course, we have the IEMs and cable. It also comes with a pretty decent assortment of tips, a soft carrying pouch, and a collar pin. As for the price, specifications, and design, again, it's priced at $219 and has a hybrid 2-driver configuration consisting of one dynamic driver and then one BA driver. The housing itself is made from a copper alloy, and the faceplate is actually made of a photochromatic glass. And I will try to get some good B-roll, but I need to get a good amount of sunlight because in full sunlight, the faceplate has a beautiful blue tint to the glass, hence the name Sapphire Mirage. But even under normal lighting conditions, the design is actually still quite nice. As a matter of fact, the build quality of the housing is very good at this price, and it even has a little weight to it, which gives it a nice, robust feel to it, but you can feel that weight in your ears a little as well. That's not to say it's uncomfortable, at least not for me, but it is noticeable. Speaking of comfort, the shape of the shell and the length of the nozzle make for an overall very comfortable fit. It sits nicely in my ears and it offers a really good seal and good isolation as well. The cable is decent, although it can be a little hard to manage. I did find myself having a little bit of an issue with tangling, but aside from that, it's not bad for the price. Okay, let's move on to the sound. Okay, let's talk about the sound of the Sapphire Mirage. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, I've been getting a lot of IEMs around this price range lately, and while most of them are pretty good, many of them just don't seem to have any standout characteristics that separate them from the pack. Again, with the exception being the Falcon Ultra, the Performer 5, and the Tantrum Kara, even though the Performer 5 has been out for a while now. But with a lot of these more recent releases, it seems like I'm just getting a lot of the same. So where does the OH10S sit? Well, it does have a V-shaped tuning, but it reminds me a lot of the new Falcon Ultra when using the stainless steel nozzle in its general presentation. I would say that the Falcon Ultra does have a smoother treble presentation, but as far as bass levels, mid-range levels, and even the upper treble, I'm hearing a lot of similarities. And again, this is using the stainless steel nozzle, not the brass nozzles with the Falcon Ultra. But to break the sound down just a little further, starting with the bass, the OH10S has really good bass extension, so it's going to give you plenty of sub-bass rumble, and of course, this having a V-shaped signature, it's going to have a fairly significant emphasis on the bass frequencies as a whole, including the mid-bass. And we know a common issue with V-shaped tunings is bass bleed into the mids. And unfortunately, that is an issue. However, the overall bass quality is quite good. So it gives you decent speed, good dynamics, and mid-bass punch, but also adds some warmth and richness to male vocals and instruments that land there. And then as you move into the lower mids, they are more recessed, but then you have a nice smooth rise going into the upper mids with a bump at around 2.5K at the ear gain region, and then another bump around 4.5K. And this upper mid and lower treble area is where you see some differences between the OH10S and the Falcon Ultra's tuning, but that additional 4.5K bump does push female vocals and some instruments a little more forward, and they can actually have a little too much energy at times. And I'm thinking of electric guitars specifically. If they're using a guitar tone that has some bite to it, then those attributes can be a little intense and could even become fatiguing for those who are sensitive to that extra ear gain. So that's just something you might want to be aware of. And some of that energy carries through to the treble as well. So cymbal strikes, while having some intensity, still sound natural. And for me, they never got to the point of sounding harsh or overly splashy. It's just that ear gain area, that mid-range bite that can be a little much sometimes. There's also adequate upper treble presence, although I do wish there was just a little bit more, because while recordings that have that airy quality do sound pretty decent at times, I do find myself wanting just a little bit more air and sparkle. Now, in regards to technical performance, I would say in terms of detail and micro detail retrieval, it's about average. And as far as the detail retrieval as a whole, again, one of the areas I feel like the OH10S could have used just a little more refinement, and this may have helped to make it even more competitive, is in the transition out of the mid bass into the lower mids. We know it loses some detail there, the other being in the upper treble. Now, as far as the sound stage, it is about average width for an IEM. Imaging and instrument separation is very good. Instruments have pretty good focus and they're easy to place within the sound field. So to kind of sum up my experience with the OH10S, now, at the opening of my review, I posed the question, does the OH10S have anything to offer that some of the other more recent sub $300 IEMs do not? And my answer to that is maybe a little. I do like it. I think as V-shaped tunings go, this is good. And in terms of pure tuning, again, it reminded me a little of the Falcon Ultra. It also engaged me and even did a good job with giving me a relatively immersive listening experience. It has good technical performance for the price point. It's very well built and it has a really cool design. And I genuinely do feel like the OH10S is priced appropriately. That being said, I'm not quite sure if it has any truly unique or special attributes that make it stand out to me. And I talked about that upper mid and lower treble energy, that mid-range bite, and that does give it a little more of an exciting presentation, and I do think there are those that kind of presentation will appeal to, but honestly, it can also be a little bit much at times as well. So I'm not sure if that really qualifies as a standout attribute, but I do need to stress that I do feel like this is a good IEM and that it meets my general expectations of a good V-shaped IEM, which again, my expectation is for it to provide an exciting and engaging listening experience, sound natural enough as to not be distracting, to also have decent technical performance. And this delivers all of that. So while I do like the OH10S and I do give it a recommendation, it's not a strong recommendation because again, it reminds me a lot of the other V-shaped IEMs out there in this price range, which is fine because I think there is a pretty decent segment of consumers that will really enjoy this as I did. And again, I really do like the design. I think the build quality is excellent, and while it may not necessarily stand out, it can certainly stand proud among the competition. So that concludes my review of the Ikko OH10S Sapphire Mirage. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch. If you like my content, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. Also, if you would, please like this video, please share this video. I hope you guys have an awesome day.